Today's video is going to document all of the abilities and everything from the scout report in the Ziggurat, so you know exactly how to take the Zig when you win KVK. Hello my friends and welcome back, I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in this video we're talking about how you take the Zig, which, if you're lucky enough to win your KVK, you have the opportunity to rally this thing down and claim the rewards. There are really solid first capture rewards. There's also end of KVK rewards that are very good. And there's a non-trivial amount of honor that you get every single minute that you are holding the Zig. Now, the buffs are pretty good too. 3% all damage and 3% all damage taken reduction. That's a 6% damage swing, which is kind of amazing. But let's go now and talk about what the abilities are on the Zig. This is really important. The scout report has 7.5 million infantry, and most importantly, I could not find any indication that the Zig is a barbarian, which means, to my knowledge, it does not look like barbarian damage is at all relevant. Now, in the attempt you're going to watch in this video, my alliance members went all in on it being a barb, which I don't think it is. I think what you'd want to do, quite frankly, is to just rally this thing with archers, because the scout report showed infantry. And I'd hate to say that you could even use a commander like Edward of Woodstock, but quite frankly, you really could even use a commander like Edward of Woodstock. And I'll talk maybe about what some of the better commander pairings might be for this rally toward the end, but I think that this fight is pretty straightforward as long as you've got the bodies, and if you've won KVK, you got to have the people to get this done. So let's talk about the abilities really quickly. He deals massive damage in a circle AoE, so you don't want to stand anywhere near the base of the Ziggurat. The next ability, if this skill affects less than 3 targets, all damage dealt is increased by 100% for 30 seconds. I mean, if you single rally, you're going to take some pretty serious damage. That just is what it is. We took this thing down with a single rally. Theoretically, if you were in a really early KVK, you might feel the need to rally with like multiple rallies to get the job done, and that will be reasonable. The third skill on the primary commander is going to make it so that after you use a skill, the rage requirement is reduced by 100. So the longer this fight goes, the harder it's going to get. The next skill is Call of the Righteous. And this is where you're going to see in the video, sort of meteor shoots out from the Zig, lands kind of far away in one of the 4 lanes around the Zig, and walks toward the Zig. Now, you want to destroy the believer, otherwise it's going to reinforce the garrison and restore a bunch of strength to the Ziggurat. Basically, it's like reinforcing it. It gets a big heal. It gets more troops. So you're going to want to swarm those down. This is why in the video of the takedown, which I'll show you, you're going to see everybody's going to be in these 4 different lanes to try to take out the believers before they can possibly get to the Zig itself. Now, the secondary commander has abilities too. Deals massive damage factor to the target, 3,500. This is single target damage. Heals 5% of units led by this commander every time they defeat an enemy army. This means that you really can't have people standing around the base of the Zig getting their armies killed, because whenever the Zig defeats an army, they're going to heal 5%, which is no good. You can't have that happening, okay? The next skill is Call of the Righteous. Summons a group of guardians to attack nearby targets once the Great Ziggurat reaches 35%. So at 35%, you're going to see a ton of Guardians be summoned, and they're going to run around and start doing damage. Guardians have extremely high attack, and their damage will increase over time. So you want to very rapidly take down those Guardians. And during battle, heals 100% of units led by this commander every 360 seconds. If you can't win in 360 seconds, then this thing enrages, essentially, not by virtue of just killing all your troops, but it resets the fight. It heals all the way back to full. And I mean, well, you're going to get wrecked like I just did with this verification. Now, the believers that I talked about, when you summon, or when those get summoned, they've got some abilities as well, but they're really somewhat inconsequential. They have 100% counterattack damage. The reason that these have boosted counterattack damage, the believers that just walk mindlessly toward the temple, is that they don't actually do any real attacks to you. And the next skill is deals massive damage factor to the target. I mean, I never saw these believers actually hit anybody. Like, I'm pretty sure they just mindlessly walked toward the center, right? But let's get to the footage of the takedown, and you can see all of the abilities that we've shown in this video come together and how it plays out. Okay, here we are. Rally is on the way. This is a Mina double C rally because they thought it was a barbarian. Now, again, I looked in the battle log, and I saw no indications that this actually was a barbarian. To my knowledge, the only barbarian in a holy site in Kingdom versus Kingdom is actually the passes. So the passes actually do qualify as a barbarian that's guarding them, and barbarian damage is super relevant for rallying those down. Now you can see the Zig is firing off some meteors. When those fire off, you can see one just landed in my lane. You're going to want to swarm this thing down. We had so many people here, it was a little bit hard to target. Like, you almost want people to sort of part to the sides, I suppose, in order to be able to identify, like, where the thing is and be able to target it. But, I mean, if you have enough people, it's just not going to matter. You also, by the way, will notice that when I zoom out, you're going to see that it has a special indicator, just like barbs normally do, that is different from a player indicator, that is different from someone who's, like, not in your alliance. It's not a blue dot. It's not a red dot. It's not a gray dot. It's got the sort of, I guess, barbarian marker. There you can see sort of that's the case. But when I zoom out even more, you'll see that it's got a separate indicator as well. That makes it a little bit easier to see exactly where these are. And I realized, by the way, this took place first thing in the morning, which is why I recorded it and am uploading it later rather than streaming this, which is that I didn't have a march present to reinforce the rally. So even though I can't fill a cav march, I guess I can fill a unexpanded cav march. I'm bringing it to the Zig, and I'm going to join the rally if I get the opportunity. Here you can see that AoE damage is pretty fierce. So you really don't want to be in the AoE damage when that happens. And it is going to heal the Zig if they end up killing your marches. So I don't think anybody actually got ripped there, which is, I guess, good for us in this particular attempt. Because, I mean, a 5% heal is pretty substantial. You really should not be trying to swarm down the Zig, even when it gets really low. Like, I don't know, man. Just beat it with the rally unless you're about to run out of time. That's my sense there. There's that AoE. That AoE makes it, by the way, so that you really can't switch lanes really easily. So if you wanted to switch lanes, you shouldn't go through the center. You should march your troops around the outside so that if one lane is, like, struggling to kill their believers for some reason, you could swing around the side. Here is the view you can see, where it's not a dot. It's that weird, like, diamond shape with the red markers inside and outside of it. You can see that in the bottom left. The believers do look very different. You can see one just spawned in the back on the left side. There's another one. You can see that meteor land, and boom, there's the believer. So the believers do fire off pretty quickly, but if you've got players in every lane, like, it's very straightforward. And even if one lane gets, like, overwhelmed, as long as you, again, have a reasonable number of players present, it should be perfectly fine. Now, I guess a part of the reason this is a little bit easier is that we're in the Season of Conquest, which, I mean, I don't know these days if you need to multi-rally the Zig in KVK like Season 2, because, I don't know, it's harder. The rally, leaders maybe don't have as much gear or tech or whatever to get the job done. We're taking down these believers. I've got my reinforcement march on its way. And at this point, I mean, it's kind of straightforward. The only thing that's going to get a little weird is when we hit that 35% mark and it's going to spawn in a bunch of believers. That's something we'll have to go deal with. And that should be very soon. In fact, there it is. So they all get summoned in. These dudes are just going to run all over the place. And ideally, you're able to fight these not right underneath the Zig. Ideally, none of these actually go and just sit on the rally, because that gets really awkward if a bunch of them were to go and start to focus the rally. So you want to take these down, avoid having your march killed around the Zig. And from here, I mean, you're kind of on cruise until the finish line. We're going to keep taking down believers, and then eventually we'll get this thing all the way down and win. It's a pretty fun fight. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's a lot like the Lost Temple takedown in your home kingdom. So it's very familiar to that. And by the way, if you want to see when we took down the Lost Temple for the very first time in my very first kingdom, God, I'm pretty sure we used I'm pretty sure we used Caesar and Hannibal Barca to rally it back in the day. I'll have a card up in the top for my very first Lost Temple takedown. Oh, man. It's been a while, man. It has been a while. This KVK has been very fun. There's been a ton of fighting. I found myself to be incredibly effective in the open field on this account where, like, I miss a lot of the free-to-play Legendary Commander sculpture value on this account, and I still have, I guess, 6 Expertise Legendaries. One is Ethelfled, in fairness, right? But I've got CJ, I've got Guan, I've got Alex, I've got Esong, and I've got Ethel. My 3 marches, I was able to hit the 30 million kills because I played a lot. I played aggressively. It took a long time, and I talked all about how I did that in a video. I'll have a card up in the top. Here's the Zig, baby. Successful takedown. Let me jump back in game, and let's talk about the combos you could use to take the Zig. So if we were doing this over again, and we wanted the very best possible rally, I think my recommendation here would be to use Nebu as one of the commanders. And a part of the reason is that I don't actually know if attacking the Zig counts as a stronghold, because I don't think it counts as a barbarian. So a commander like Gilgamesh gets a bonus when you are attacking a city or a stronghold. I don't know if it counts as either of those things. So I would say that the Nebu is probably a better primary rally because he gets a benefit when you're leading a rally attack rather than when you're attacking a city or a stronghold. The other commander that I would probably pair with Nebu is an oldie but goodie at this point, and that's going to be Ramses. And Ramses cares about being in the open field. He doesn't really care if it's a city or field or whatever, as long as he's not in a garrison. So probably like just Ramses and Nebu. Am I crazy for thinking that that would be a really good archer rally to get the job done? I feel like that would be very strong. If you were going to use calves, I think because it doesn't look like it's a barbarian, that I would stick with XY and Khan. Khan, reducing rage. XY, reducing rage. You're just going to do a ton of damage with XY Khan. Absolutely ridiculous amounts of damage. And I suppose if you were going to rally with infantry, I mean, I'd probably be using Herald and Pakal. Right? Herald and Pakal will be the way to do it. Let's just get a look here. What do these skills do? Oh, this is when attacking strongholds and cities. I still feel like Herald might be a fine choice. When you pair with Pakal, it could just be pretty busted. I mean, what else are you going to do? Guan and Herald? What are we going to do? Guan and Pakal? I don't think so. The key here is that you need lots of damage. Let's be really clear. You need lots of damage to take down this thing before the 360 seconds expire because you just lose at that point. So you would pick whatever infantry or cavalry or archer pair you think is going to crank the most damage possible, and you're really not worried about how tanky or survivable your march is. You just want to do tons of damage. You could technically use CJ, but he doesn't really take skill damage during that encounter, not a meaningful frequency, so you wouldn't want to do that. If I were rallying this right now, I mean, I think I would do Ramses and Nebu, and I'd probably call it a day, and that's how I'd launch the rally. If you enjoyed this video, throw a like on here and consider subscribing. A main motivation for me to record this thing just was to document, like, what are the abilities on the Zig? That way, people who are wondering, like, hey, how do I do this thing? Well, now you've got the video that shows exactly what you need to know. If you'd like to see other footage from this KVK, I'll include my restart playlist. The card will be up in the top. Just tap the little info button and scroll to the bottom of the playlist. You're going to see all of the fighting that we did to get to this position where we now have the Zig. And I mean, just yesterday, we were battling our way into the starting zone to make our way to their ruined Crusader fortress. And probably in a few days from now, we'll be streaming a battle into their shared zone 5 with the, the 2 enemy war camps. So subscribe. You're not going to want to miss it. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.